Hello, dear friends. Today I'm going to share with you a webinar on steelmaking market trends. I'm going to speak about trends in steelmaking from 1975 to 2025 and make a prediction for the next 25 years. Let's discuss it. Why did I decide to record this video? Because today the steel industry is not growing and we have to find micro niches that are growing in order to find your place in the market. So let me share with you the presentation. As I told you, these are my thoughts and my work. I use this analysis to make strategy for my team, and I will share the strategy of SmartScrap with you as well. Maybe it will give you some thoughts and ideas for a business. By the way, if you need this presentation, you just can write in the chat presentation, and we will send it to you after the webinar. Also, if you have questions, you can send these questions and I will try to answer at the end of the webinar. So, we understand that today the market is tough. It is more difficult to grow and even to have the same financial results as before, and year by year the situation is becoming more complicated. I remember a professor from my MBA course who said, do business in a growing trend. So, let's try to find growing trends in the steel industry together. Let's go. The first slide shows world steel production from 1975 till 2025 and the forecast till 2050. We see that in 1975, steel production was 650 million tons and it grew slightly till 2000 up to 860 million tons. Then it doubled in the next 20 years. If you look here, we see that growth stopped in 2018 and steel production was between 1,800 million tons and 1,900 million tons of steel per year. It is evident that from 2000 till 2018, it was easy to expand business in the steel industry. The expansion of the business was not only because we were smart. Yes, for sure, we were smart, but also because we were lucky, because we made business in a growing trend. Today, from 2018, there is no growing trend like it was before. So let's try to find growing trends in the steel industry together. The next slide shows steel capacity utilization. We see that average steel capacity utilization today is around 80%. It means that 20% of all capacity is not used, and the ratio of capacity utilization will go down to about 75%. What does it mean? It means that competition in the market will be tougher. All of us in the supply chain work for steel producers, and if steel producers feel competition and they cannot use their capacity at 100% because they cannot sell all the products they have, it means that competition is tough and it is more difficult to do business. Next. Steel production by process. We see that in 1975, the production of steel in electric arc furnaces was just 5%. From 2000 till 2025, it was around about 30% in electric arc furnaces. The rest was in the integrated steel mills, blast furnace, basic oxygen furnace route. By 2050, steel production will be more or less the same in two different routes: integrated steel mills, blast furnace, basic oxygen furnace route, and electric arc furnaces. The reason for that is clear. The CO2 intensity of steelmaking processes is different. In the blast furnace, basic oxygen furnace route, the emission of carbon dioxide is about 2.3 tons per 1 ton of final steel. In electric arc furnace, it depends on raw materials. For DRI, it is about 1.4 tons, and if steel mill uses scrap, it is about 0.7 tons per 1 ton of final steel. But that net zero target is just 200 kilograms per 1 ton of steel. When we achieve this target, we achieve carbon neutrality. The pathway to carbon neutrality in steelmaking is maximizing the use of scrap, green hydrogen, carbon capture, and storage for blast furnaces and green electricity. As I told you, this webinar is going to help you to find growing trends. So here we see the main growing trends in steelmaking in the next decades, the production of green steel and all options to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Next, let's see geographically which region is going to grow and which region is not. In 1975, the production of steel in USSR was 150 million tons. Then came Japan, USA, Germany, and China. In 2000, China became number one in the world as a steel producer, and now China is still number one. More than 50% of steel is produced in China. Next come India, Japan, USA, and Russia. And in 2050, I expect that China will be more or less the same. India will grow. We see a growing market in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and other countries. The USA will be more or less the same, and we see a new market in the Middle East. So here again, we see growing trends India, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. It means that if you want to find growing trends and growing markets, try to establish connections with steel mills in these regions. Next, let's have a look at raw material production and find trends there. Iron ore. Iron ore production in 1975 was around 800 million tons. Then it grew slightly and then rapidly from 2000 till 2020. Right now, production is around 2.5 billion tons of iron ore per year. Iron ore is the second largest commodity in the world after crude oil. What is the trend? Demand slows down. Global iron ore production reaches a plateau around 2.9 billion tons. There is a shift to high-grade ore for decarbonization and direct reduction. Direct reduced iron growth requires richer ore with iron content more than 65%. There are new supply regions. Africa is becoming a third pole alongside Australia and Brazil. Here I would like to share a story of a friend of mine. He was a scrap trader in Egypt, and he got a license to work with an iron ore mine. Then he got a license to export, and now he's an exporter and producer of iron ore, and he exports it to other countries. This is a case when a small or medium-scale business shifted to growing trends and found its place in the new trends of metallurgy. The next. China demand decreases, India demand grows, and the trend is ore beneficiation to meet quality requirements. As I told you, to produce DRI and to produce green steel, the market needs iron ore of better quality with higher iron content. This is also a trend. Please try to find whether you have some connections with potential iron ore sources, or maybe you have some tailings of old iron ore or poor iron ore mines, and you can find a way to increase iron content there. You can search for technologies, etc., and you can find your place in the market. Let's move forward. Iron production. Iron production here means not only pig iron in ingots, but also liquid iron used in integrated steel mills. We see that there was a growing trend until 2020, but now the trend is pessimistic. It goes down because of green steel. So there is a decline after 2020. Production starts falling to about 750 million tons by 2050 as blast furnaces are gradually phased out. This is a decarbonization pressure. Iron ore from blast furnace route is the most CO2 intensive route with 2.3 tons of carbon dioxide per 1 ton of steel. We already discussed it. So there is a replacement by DRI and scrap. This is also a way to produce green steel or steel with low CO2 emission. We also see blast furnace closures and regional shifts. China, gradual reduction in blast furnace output. India, still building new blast furnaces but will also shift to DRI. Europe, blast furnaces are almost closed. The next. DRI production. No, sorry. Here. DRI production shows a rapid growth trend from the current time 2025 till 2050. We see that in 1975, production of DRI was just 5 million tons. Today, it is 150 million tons. And it will grow to almost 500 million tons by 2050. What is trends? Rapid growth projected to about 450 to 500 million tons by 2050. Decarbonization driver, the DRI electric arc furnace route emits less carbon dioxide than integrated steel mills, and with green hydrogen emission can fall below 0.2 tons of CO2 per 1 ton of steel. Regional expansion. Middle East is already a leader due to natural gas. India is rapidly scaling DRI production and will be a global hub. Africa is also emerging with access to both gas and solar or hydrogen. Hydrogen revolution by 2040-2050, part of gas-based DRI will switch to hydrogen-based DRI, making it a cornerstone of green steel. DRI will secure consistent quality of metallics for electric arc furnaces, especially where scrap is insufficient or too contaminated. Here we see that for green steel and for DRI production, it is very important to have hydrogen. If DRI is produced using fossil fuel or other carbon-containing materials, the emission of carbon dioxide is around 1.4 tons per 1 ton of steel, and it is still a very high level to achieve carbon neutrality. So, for green steel, the market needs hydrogen, and there is a huge lack of hydrogen in the market. We see that hydrogen infrastructure is planned to build in Europe. Gas pipelines are going to be used for hydrogen infrastructure. There will be a big producers like chemical plants, but also small and medium-scale producers of hydrogen, for example, using waste through pyrolysis or electrolysis or other ways to make energy from waste. This is also a very strong growing trend, and if you are in the market, you have to pay attention to this trend to find your way and your place. Maybe you can build a facility to produce hydrogen. It is also a way to grow. Let's move forward. Ferroscrap production. We see that ferroscrap production also has a growing trend. In 1975, production was about 200 million tons, and current production is almost 1 billion tons. We expect that ferroscrap production will grow up to 1.5 billion tons. It is a recycling boom. Recycling becomes the main metallic source for steelmaking by 2050, covering nearly half of global production. There's also decarbonization factor. The scrap electric arc furnace route has low CO2 emissions. What is the source for growth? Regional dynamics. In developed countries like European Union, USA, Japan, scrap production will be more or less the same, but the focus will be on quality, sorting, and low residual scrap. In emerging economies like China, India, Southeast Asia, there will be a rapid growth in scrap generation due to construction growth and economic growth in the past 20 years. We know that scrap today is steel 30-40 years ago, depending on the market. All steel that was produced around 2000 will become scrapper around 2030, 2040, or 2050. And this is the reason why scrap production will grow. There is also a technological challenge, increasing need for advanced scrap sorting and processing, removal of copper and other trap elements to meet high quality steel requirements. As for global trade, scrap will remain a strategic commodity with Turkey, India, and Southeast Asia as the biggest importers, but the trade share will decline to about 15% by 2050 because scrap is becoming a strategic resource. It is already a strategic resource, but due to the decarbonization factor, countries will secure scrap domestically and close borders for exporting. We expect that almost 85% of scrap will be used domestically. It means that even though scrap production will grow, there will be no big space to grow for international scrap traders. Next. Here we see global raw material production in total. Iron ore and hot metal are declining. Scrap is a growing trend. DRI is a growing trend. So next. Here we see global trade dynamic by volume and by share of the production. We see that the global steel trade is growing by volume. In 1975, it was a little more than 100 million tons of steel per year. Today, this is almost the same level as China exports alone. Then the volume grew, and in 2025, it is more than 450 million tons of steel traded internationally. But if you look at the share of trade in total production, we see a different picture. Around 2000, the share was at the maximum about 40%. It means almost 40% of all produced steel was exported or imported. It was the era of globalization. And after that, the share went down. Now we see that the share is about 25%. Our prediction is that by 2050, the share will be around 20%. What does it mean? As we already discussed, due to decarbonization, the share of logistics in the value chain will be reduced. Steel, like scrap, will be used more domestically. There will be many mini mills in different regions which collect scrap, remelt it, and produce rebars or other products. This is a picture of the future. Factors changing steel trade. The factors that are changing steel trade: decarbonization, more domestic consumption, fewer long distance shipments, carbon border taxes, scrap recycling and residues reduce the need for imported semi-finished products, protectionism, CBAM in the European Union, similar measures in the USA, Japan, and India, regionalization, Asia for Asia, Europe for Europe, America for America. We see that exports of raw materials, semi-finished products, and low-value final products will decline. Mostly finished product will high added. Just a moment. Mostly finished product with high added value will be exported. So next, steel export structure by products. Here we see steel export structure by products. Today, semi-finished products are about 80, 58 million tons. Other groups are construction steel, flat products, coated steel, and special products. By 2050, we see that the share of semi-finished products will be reduced from about 13% today to about 9%. It means that even in volume, this segment will be reduced. Construction steel by volume will be more or less the same, but its share in total exports will be reduced. Flat products will keep more or less the same share and by volume will be slightly higher. Coated steel will increase. Special products will also increase. So we see a clear trend. International trading will focus on high-value final products, while low-value products will mostly be used domestically. Geographically, for export, China less export of semi-finished products, more value-added products. India and Southeast Asia major exporters of construction steel and semi-finished product. Europe and Japan focus on niche products such as an electric steel and green steel. Africa and the Middle East, new exporting regions mainly semi-finished products and DRI or HBI. Steel use by sectors. Now let's look at steel use by sectors. Construction, infrastructure, etc. We see that the share of steel used for construction and infrastructure is going to decline. Why? Because we don't expect as much construction in the next 25 years as we had in the last quarter of a century, mainly due to China. Yes, India is growing, but not enough to compensate. So the share of construction and infrastructure will go down. Mechanical equipment will stay more or less the same, but we see that steel for automotive is going to increase by about 50%. The reason is the shift from traditional cars with fossil fuels to electric vehicles. Also, we see that the share of electrical equipment will increase. This is connected with green energy and all projects related to renewable energy production and transmission. Next, workforce, current reality. Let's now see what is going to change in the workforce. The current reality, main focus is on furnace operators, rolling mill operators, logistics, equipment maintenance. Automation is already being implemented, electrical furnace, control systems, digital twins, etc., but the human role remains key. The workforce is dominated by manual labor positions, often with low digital literacy. There is an aging workforce, especially in Europe and Japan, and a shortage of young specialists. What is the forecast? Sorry. Forecast for workforce automation, robotics, and artificial intelligence will reduce the number of employees needed at steel plants. Digital specialists will dominate, data engineers, artificial intelligence system operators, cybersecurity experts will become core roles. There will be less heavy manual labor, robots, automatic cranes and tunnishes will replace dangerous tasks. New competencies will be needed. Green metallurgy skills, hydrogen handling, CO2 capture, ESG compliance and reporting. Geographic shift, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, more jobs in new plants. Europe and USA, fewer operators, more specialists in green technologies and digitalization. So, if we sum up, let's sum up the growing trends in metallurgy from 2025 to 2050 and collect some ideas. Raw materials. Scrap becomes the main source of steel, rising up to about 1.2 billion tons by 2050. But as we already discussed, it will be mostly used domestically. If you want to grow here, you have to choose regions with growing scrap production like China and Southeast Asia and open scrapyards there. DRI will triple by 2050. Hydrogen-based DRI will be the core of green steel. Iron ore trends in ore beneficiations and trade. It is important to find rich iron ore deposits and maybe some other products that can replace part of traditional ore. There is a growing demand for high-grade iron ore and beneficiation. Africa is a new region for iron ore and DRI production, a market where you can build your business. And by the way, we do some business in Africa, and I can tell you that some simple things which can be done easily in Europe and are quite complicated to do in Africa. This is also an advantage. If you build infrastructure for trading or for projects there, you can use your experience to create value. Africa doesn't have an optimal market structure yet, and you can build projects taking this into account. Let's go further. Technology and decarbonization. Electric arc furnaces will grow to about 50% of global steel output. There is a still lack of efficiency. We visit electric arc furnaces and we see that the way they use electricity and capacity is often not optimal. Hydrogen technologies. Hydrogen-based DRI, hydrogen injection into blast furnaces. You can research hydrogen technologies and invest your time in this area. Carbon capture and storage for part of the blast furnace, Mexican furnace capacity, and green steel powered by electric arc furnaces and DRI. Here, I would like to mention an important point. You might say, look, I am a commercial person. I am not a technical person. I have no idea how to develop technological projects. It is easier just to buy and sell scrap than build a hydrogen plant or optimize electric arc furnaces. I would say that there are many technical people who have knowledge, ideas, and solutions, but they are not commercial. And the combination of commercial people and technical people in one project helps to develop it. It is a synergy. I know people who collaborate this way, commercial people who can sell, find investments, etc., together with technical people who focus on technologies. Friends, today we don't have simple solution. We have to be flexible and try to find different way to grow. So the next products and markets. Construction steel, strong demand in Africa, India and Southeast Asia because of construction projects. Coated steel, the fastest growing segment up to 25-30% of all exports. Special steels for energy, transport, electric vehicles and grids. And green steel, premium products for the European Union, USA and Japan. For example, you can build your supply chain especially for products with high added value and build connections with niche producers of products for energy, transport, electric vehicles, and renewable energy systems. Trade and business models. Regionalizations, Asia for Asia, Europe for Europe. As we already discussed, raw material like scrap and low-value products will be used mainly domestically. High-value products will be sold internationally. The next, protectionism, CBAM in the European Union, similar schemes in the USA, Japan, and India. And there is an opportunity if you understand how carbon taxes work and how to make money from them, it can be a business. So, and shift from raw materials to solutions. Customers need integrated services, CO2 reductions, furnace optimization, quality stability, etc. Workforce and competencies. In terms of workforce and competencies, automation and artificial intelligence will reduce the number of purely manual workers. There will be more engineers and digital specialists. New skills will be needed in hydrogen, ESG, and CO2 reporting. And now, I would like to share with you our SmartScrap strategy. It is quite open just to show you the way we are thinking. We are flexible. We try all the time. We try to find the way to grow. I don't wait for gifts from authorities. When the European Union announced protection measures for European steel producers, it has two sides. For steel producers, maybe it is good, but for scrap traders and exporters from Europe, it is not good because they have to sell their products inside the European Union. It means that prices will be reduced. But we live in this period of time. We are all in the same situation, and we have to move forward. So let's see our strategy. Slack and waste management. We know a lot about it and we continue to go deeper. This is an intersection of steel and cement industries. Because of decarbonization, many waste material from steel production can be used in the cement industry, helping to reduce CO2 emissions. And the next, geographically. Geographically, we are going to be more focused on Africa and the Middle East as growing regions. Personal brand, podcasts, interviews, conferences. For the personal brand, I strongly believe it helps me to grow my business. Let me give you a short story. Just a moment, let me see here. Short story. Once it was very complicated for me to reach one person in a big steel mill. He was responsible for byproducts in one of ArcelorMittal plants and was a big expert. And he made a presentation at one of the Slack conferences. At that time, I sat in the first row and asked questions to many experts just to be visible. I did not even have a clear target, but I asked interesting questions. And after his presentation, this person came to me after my question. He stopped as the people who wanted to speak to him and started talking with me. And this is an example of how personal brand helps you to grow. Podcasts, interviews, conferences. This is my way of networking. My target is to become an expert in my field. It helps me to establish relations with people. And if you feel that you're expert, you can use this way too, because in our field there are not many good speakers. And I also train my visibility to make presentation more interesting and so on. The next, online education. We packed our knowledge into online courses, not all knowledge, but the main part that helps us to do business today. The education system in the world is also changing. It is not useless, but less useful than before to go to an MBA course for 2 or 3 years and study many things. Now you can choose the exact knowledge you need. For example, if you need to become stronger in international trading, you can use online education from a company that has already done and shares this information. Fundamentals of metallurgy are very useful today if you want to work in the steel industry and find your place. Personal brand, as I said, it is very important to use, and artificial intelligence today is crucial. And all these things you can find separately outside the steel industry, but we are in the steel industry. And I want to adapt this knowledge exactly for you so that you can use it and earn money. So, and finally, my message that from raw material suppliers to solution providers, what is the main idea of this about? It is a shift from being a supplier from materials to be a solution provider. So I shared this information with you. It is our contribution to the market. If you feel that we can work, please send us a message. I would be happy to have connection with strong people from our industry. Also, I remind if you need this presentation, you can leave the comment in the chat. You can just write the presentation or leave your opinion about the webinar, and it will help us to promote the video, and it will help me to be more useful. So let's stay in touch, and I would be happy to see you at the next webinars. And now I'm going to try to find questions if we have. Daria, do you have question on the chat?
No, for now we don't have any.
Mhm. Everything's clear because I uh, don't see this event in my smartphone for some reason. So we don't have questions.
Yes, no.
Okay, maybe it's everything is clear. Okay, friends. So I hope that this webinar was useful for you. And just a moment. Just a moment. Let's stay in touch and have a good evening. Bye.